What's going on, everyone? Harris Rubenstein here for NBA Now. We went through the Western Conference playoff picture first, so now we're going to go look through the Eastern Conference playoff picture as we enter the final stretch of the regular season. Let's take a look at the standings to start things off here. The Bucks, the Raptors, the Pacers, and the Celtics are the current top four seeds in the Eastern Conference. Stunning to see the Pacers still sitting there at 3 after the Oladipo injury. 5 through 8, the 76ers, the Nets, the Hornets, and the Pistons. Couple teams on the bubble still, though. The Heat, the Magic, the Wizards. Obviously, the Hawks are pretty much out of it at this point. And then into the bottom of the barrel of the East, you got the Bulls, the Cavs, and the all-star tanking Knicks. Let's go through a couple teams that have legitimate shots at the playoffs. And no, we're not starting with the Wizards. We're actually going to ignore them and talk about the Orlando Magic. So I'm stunned to see how well the Orlando Magic have been doing so far this year. It really is impressive with their complete lack of depth at the point guard position. They're probably overstacking of the power forward position, but still their ability to win games this season has been impressive. Now they're still under 500, but that's okay in the Eastern Conference. At 27-32, they are still very much in the playoff hunt, and 538 is actually giving them a playoff probability of 60%. Now they make up that number based off a couple of things. It's health going into the last stretch of the season, as well as schedule. So the Magic actually have a pretty easy schedule coming up over the next 20 games or so, and as you'll see, compared to a couple of teams we have coming up next, it's just straight up going to be easier for them to end up in the playoff picture. Let's talk about the number 9 seed, the Miami Heat. Look, we give Erik Spoelestra not enough credit for this team. We really don't. I have no idea how, with the roster that he has, with the injuries that they've been dealing with, that they are still relevant in the NBA right now. Now, it has a lot to do with the fact that they've turned Justice Winslow into a point guard. Ever since Goran Dragic went down with an injury, they've allowed Winslow to be their primary ball handler, and his numbers over the past 20 games have been fantastic. Now, the Heat haven't been winning a ton of games recently, but I think the Heat probably have the best head coach out of all these teams on the bubble. I will never doubt Erik Spoelestra again after what he pulled off last season. So if they're still in the hunt, you gotta watch out for the Miami Heat. Now, Bet DSI is giving us some pretty interesting numbers with whether or not the Heat are going to make the playoffs. Plus 185 on yes, minus 285 on no. I think it's worth going to chatsports.com/bet, using my promo code NBA120, and putting some money down on yes. At plus 185, you can see a nice return on your money. And again, look, the Miami Heat made the playoffs last year. Who do you trust going forward? Do you trust the one-man team of Kemba Walker, or do you trust the well-coached team of Erik Spoelstra and the Miami Heat? Personally, I trust the Heat a little bit more, but we're going to have a fun last 20 games in the Eastern Conference. Let's go through the teams that are in the playoffs as we stand right now. We'll start with our 1 seed and 8 seed matchup between the Bucks and the Pistons. The Bucks this year have been probably the biggest surprise in the NBA, in my opinion. I thought they were going to be pretty good this year. In fact, when I did my projected rankings at the start of the season, I ranked the Milwaukee Bucks as the 8th best team in basketball. I thought their record was going to be 49-33. They are going to wildly overshoot 49 wins this year and could end up hitting 60 if they go on a big-time run to end the season this year. I like what they're doing so far with Giannis. I like the move with Nikola Mirotic. And I think, personally, it is outrageous that James Harden is currently the odds-on favorite to win MVP. You're asking for my opinion, it is Giannis 100%. This Bucks team would be nothing without the year that Giannis is having. Also, one more quick thing about the Milwaukee Bucks. I know they don't have the bravado around them or the shine that a lot of the other all-time great teams do. But if you look at the advanced statistics of what this team is doing this year, they're currently putting up one of the 15 best individual team seasons ever. Yeah, ever. This is a historically good basketball team, and I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do in the playoffs. Hopefully, they won't turn into the Toronto Raptors, but we'll get to them later. Let's talk about the Detroit Pistons at the 8th seed. I'd put my life savings and all of my inheritance on the Pistons losing in the first round this year. I think the Pistons are going to make the playoffs. I think you got 20 games left. You got to trust that Dwayne Casey and Blake Griffin are going to be able to put things together. But I've never been more confident in a team losing in the first round than I am the Detroit Pistons if they have to go up against the Milwaukee Bucks. I will put all of my money on the Bucks to beat the Pistons in the first round. Though, if you're the Pistons, it doesn't matter if you lose in the first round. You got to just get to the playoffs at this point. Let's talk about our next matchup here between the Raptors and the Hornets. Let's start with Toronto. The big question for them this year, will they finally get over the hump? Will Kawhi Leonard be enough of a force to get them over that playoffs hunt and get them into a finals? I like their chances. I really do. I think that they're the second best team in this conference. I think bringing in someone with playoff experience like a Marc Gasol is going to be great for this team. I love what we've been seeing out of Pascal Siakam so far. I just think this team is going to finally get over the hump this year. Whether that's getting into the finals remains to be seen. But I think as of right now, this team should be a favorite to at least make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And once you get there, anything can happen. But you add Kawhi, who is a proven postseason performer, and this might just be the Raptors' year. Let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets, currently sitting at 27-30. So remember, if you're an Eastern Conference team, you don't need to be a 500 team to make the playoffs. You just need to be better than the other crappy teams in the conference, and that's what the Hornets have been this year. It's no surprise that they're actually in the playoff hunt, seeing as out of all the teams on the bubble, whether it's the Pistons or the Magic or the Heat, they have the best individual player, and that is Kemba Walker. I'm very excited to see what he's going to be able to do in his first playoff run. He was an absolute force back when he was in the Big East Championship and also in March Madness when he was with UConn. One of the best college basketball players, at least one of the best seasons I've ever seen a college basketball player have, and I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with the spotlight on him in the postseason. Let's talk about probably the most interesting matchup we have so far. That's the Pacers and the Nets at the 3 and the 6 seed. So let's start with the Pacers first. It is stunning that they are still winning without Victor Oladipo. I thought they were going to fall off a cliff, but credit to Nate McMillan and his staff for keeping this team on the up and up. We've seen some nice play from Domantas Sabonis this year. Miles Turner's turned things around a little bit recently as well. Will this team be able to win a playoff series without a superstar? I personally don't think so, especially because of the team that they're going to be up against. And yes, that is the Brooklyn Nets. The team, I will admit it, I had people calling me out in the comment section. I was wrong about the Brooklyn Nets. At the start of the season, I ranked them as my 27th best team in basketball, and I thought their record was going to be 26-56. Obviously, they've already shattered my projected record, and 538's playoff probability is giving them a 78% chance of making the playoffs, an astronomical number for a team with the expectations that they had coming into this year. And BetDSI seems to agree with 538 as well, giving us odds on them making the playoffs at -760, but also saying no at +380. So an interesting thing to think about, if you think the Nets are going to falter down the stretch here, you can make some sneaky good money here if you put money on no. And of course, there's only one place that you should be gambling on the internet, and that's with our sportsbook partner, BetDSI. Head to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code NBA120 for a 120% deposit bonus. I put a lot of money down on some prospective playoff teams. We got 20 games left, or around 20 games left in the NBA season. And personally, I think the Nets are going to make the playoffs, but I also think the Hornets are not going to. So watch out for that as we enter this stretch here at the end of the year. Last but certainly not least, I don't really know if it's a rivalry because the 76ers cannot beat the Celtics, but the quote-unquote rivalry between the Celtics and the 76ers at the 4 and 5 seed. Now, I want to make something very clear. On our Western Conference playoff picture video, we had a couple teams with similar records, and we mentioned that they were tied. The Celtics and the 76ers are not tied, despite having the same record. The Celtics already beat the 76ers in their season series, so they already own the tiebreaker. But with this Celtics team going into the playoffs, one thing that cannot be forgotten, this is still the deepest team in the conference by a significant margin. They go 10 deep, and not just 10 deep with random dudes. They go 10 deep with players with legitimate postseason experience. Most of their team is returning from last year when they made it about 4 minutes away from making it to the NBA Finals. And as much as they've struggled in the middle part of the year so far, I still think this Celtics team is going to be a threat in the postseason this year, especially when you remember they still had Brad Stevens, and Brad Stevens has been ripping apart inferior coaches ever since he's come into the league. And one of those inferior coaches has been Brett Brown. And as great as the Philadelphia 76ers moves have been so far this year with getting Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris, they still were not able to beat the Boston Celtics at home without Kyrie Irving. So the real question is, how will their new Big Four work in the playoffs? Personally, I think they're going to have a lot of ball movement issues. They have so much talent on this team, and I wish they just ran a different offensive system. What they run right now, which basically is running it through the post of Joel Embiid, makes no sense. They should be doing a pick and roll based offense. Allow Ben Simmons to play off the ball and drive to the hoop off of a pick. Allow Tobias Harris to become a spot up shooter, and he can also be a ball handler in a pick and roll offense. That's all that Jimmy Butler has run his entire NBA career. It is still very confusing to me why Brett Brown has not altered the 76ers system despite adding one superstar and one very good player onto this team. But let me know in the comment section below who wins this playoff matchup, type C for Celtics, type 7 for 76ers. If history is any example, the Celtics should come out on the victorious side of things. But with that new Big Four, maybe things will be different this year.